Welcome to another review of a vegan product by me, a non-vegan. Today it's Violife Epic Mature Cheddar Flavour. So in the comments on one of the previous videos in this series, somebody asked if there was a vegan substitute for a mature cheese flavour. And this product promises to do that. So this is Violife 100% vegan Epic Mature Cheddar Flavour. Pack here says Violife Epic Mature Cheddar Flavour Block. Food preparation with coconut oil. Ingredients: water, coconut oil, modified starch, sea salt, sunflower kernel grounded. Interesting. Mature cheddar flavour, acidity regulator, lactic acid, olive extract, colour, beta carotene, vitamin B12, not to be confused with GMO, genetically modified ingredients. Suitable for vegans and vegetarians, dairy-free, lactose-free and soya-free. Packaged in a protective atmosphere. Once opened, consume within 7 days. Which is unusual because cheese normally lasts a bit longer than that. But this is not cheese. This is essentially, if you look at the ingredients, modified starch and coconut oil and water, this is essentially a block of savoury custard. Anyway, let's open it up and see what we've got inside of here. So, a rectangular block of something that kind of resembles cheese. Surface texture is a little bit more uniform than I would expect cheese to be. Let's have a sniff. Now, it does smell kind of creamy and cheesy. The whole of the texture and, I don't know, product uniformity is a bit more plasticky and, some mild cheeses do that. I would not expect a mature cheese to behave like this materially. Okay, let's have a taste. It does taste like cheese. I would say that doesn't taste like cheddar. The texture is just a little bit more springy than I would expect from cheddar. The texture is almost like the springiness you get with Jarlsberg or Edam or some of the European cheeses I've tasted. The flavour, I don't know, it does taste a bit like cheese. I wouldn't call it epic. But I like mature cheeses that make your face hurt when you eat them. Let's try it in a context where you might have cheese. So I'm going to have some cheese and crackers. I've got my pickle here. I've got a new jar of odds and ends pickle. The second to last jar, the big jar we're saving for Christmas. Let's have a bit of that on a cracker with a little bit of chutney. Quite a lot of chutney. Well, it kind of works. Slightly different context then. Let's have it. Let's try it on a piece of just kind of plain water biscuit with a little bit of pickled gherkin. So in this context, I would say aesthetically that is a substitute for cheese, but I would not say the flavour is epic, mature. I would not say that's anything like the complexity and the depth of flavour you would get from a proper mature cheddar. This is more like a medium cheddar or Edam or one of those sort of milder flavoured cheeses. And I think there's probably a good reason for that. And I think it's probably just that the flavour here is added to the product. It's not the result of a fermentation process. It's not the result of a biological or enzymatic maturing process that you would get in natural cheese. So it's the flavours had to be added. And I suspect if they added more of that flavour to make it even more cheesy, more mature flavoured, maybe that would just go wrong and it would end up tasting horrible. And just plain on a cracker like that with no pickle, it is plausibly cheesy. It's not plausibly cheddar. So that's trying it cold on a cracker. But I think what we should try to do is make some cheese on toast and we'll see how it performs there. So I've got a couple of slices of really nice multi-bloomer here. I think we'll do one that's kind of plain cheese on toast and one that's got some extra bits in there for flavour. So first thing I'm going to do is toast one side of this bread. Put my toaster on bagel mode, which will toast one side of it. And while we're waiting for that bread to toast on one side, I'm going to try grating this. So let's see how it grates. Yeah, I mean, it shreds up a lot like cheese. There's just something a bit weird about the texture and the opacity of it. I don't know if you can see it on camera. I certainly can see it here in real life. It looks more like a cheese sauce that's set than it does like cheese. I mean, it should do because it is kind of a sauce that's been set. So for this one, it is literally just going to be some of the fake cheese on top of toast. I'm just going to grill that as is, like that. Nothing added, just cheese, or just the cheese substitute on the bread. And we're going to try and toast that until it goes crisp and melty, hopefully, if it does. So on my second slice, I want to kind of enhance it a little bit. Now, cheese on toast, I would quite often use a bit of Worcestershire sauce or a bit of Marmite or something like that. I can't use Worcestershire sauce because obviously that's made from animals, and I want to try and keep this faithful to the whole plant-based recipe thing. So I'm going to use these, which are my pickled walnuts. These have got a similar kind of flavour profile to Worcester sauce, kind of spicy and sweet and savoury. So I'm just going to use one of these and I'm going to chop it up. And so what I think we'll do here is we'll do on one half of this, do a little bit of this chili Marmite. Just going to put that on, kind of just gently dab that onto the bread. On the other half, my pickled walnuts. And then we'll have some of this grated fake cheese. I think we might need a little bit more than that. That's now going to go under the grill, or broiler if you're American, and we're going to toast that and see what happens to it. Now sadly I can't show you this cooking because my grill only works with the door shut of the oven. Just a quirk of this particular model. So I can't show you that cooking. You're just going to have to trust that I'm keeping an eye on that. Well, that seems to be as close as we're going to get to melted cheese on toast. The bread is actually burning a little bit around the edges, even though I did try and kind of overlap the cheese a little bit. There's a tiny little bit of toasting here going on, but the cheese is just not bubbling and melting like I would normally expect real cheese to do. Right, time for a little taste test then. So let's see what it's like on here. It has kind of melted, but not in the same way that cheese melts. So this is just the plain one. The texture is really, really sticky and it just binds to your teeth. It tastes less like cheese than it did when it was cold. Okay, and then so we got with the chili Marmite and with pickled walnuts this side. Let's try the chili Marmite first. Yeah, that's actually quite nice because the Marmite's giving it some richness and depth of flavour that, frankly, it's lacking. There's still something weirdly soft about the texture. So this is one with pickled walnuts. This is kind of equivalent to having Worcestershire sauce with it. It's kind of okay, but sorry if you can hear the wind howling. There's a storm blowing up outside. It's kind of okay, but really the bit I'm enjoying most is the pickled walnuts there. It's almost like pastry or something, which I suppose is about right because it is a starch-based product. As it's cooling down, it's tasting more like cheese than it did when it was hot. Which is just weird. It wouldn't be complete without the Eva test, so I've got a tiny little morsel here, tiny amount because, you know, she's a dog and, oh, she seems eager to try it. Okay, there it is. Is that good? Well, she ate it. She ate it, but I think she had the same problem I did. It got stuck on her teeth. So that was Violife Epic Mature Cheddar Flavour Block. So in summary, it kind of works as a cheese substitute on crackers, but it really doesn't substitute for a mature cheese. It's about the equivalent of a medium cheddar, I would say, on crackers, and really only kind of excused as a cheese when other things are with it. When its flavour is front and centre, it's not exactly cheesy. In cooking, it just doesn't work at all. So cheese on toast was a disaster. It was a sticky mess, stuck to my teeth, stuck to the dog's teeth. It just collapsed into a weird glue. And I think probably the reason for that is that this is made from starch, whereas real cheese is made from protein and fat primarily. This is made from starch and fat. So carbohydrates, whilst they work as a substitute for protein in solidifying this thing into a block, they don't work in the same way mechanically when they're heated and cooked. And they don't work in the same way chemically when they're cooked, so it doesn't crisp up. Whereas real cheese has that whole Maillard reaction and goes crispy and brown on top, this kind of just singed, and it had the flavour of burnt dough, which I suppose is what it is when it's cooked. So it's kind of a replacement, but I wasn't that impressed with this. I gave a little bit of this to my daughter, who's lactose intolerant and can't eat real cheese. Even hard cheeses have sufficient residual lactose in them to cause her a problem, and so she can't have dairy at all, really. I gave her a piece of this. Her first reaction, actually, when she saw it, was she said it looks like a cartoon drawing of cheese. And I can kind of see what she means. It's just something about it that looks like a plastic representation of cheese. I don't want to be too unkind about this, because these products are trying to fill a niche, and I think to a certain extent a rising tide lifts all boats. The only other thing to say is that the flavour of this kind of stayed with me a bit longer than I would normally expect a cheese flavour to stay on my palate. The weird kind of lactic acid flavour stuck in my mouth for hours after eating it, to the extent that I wondered if I'd got some stuck in my beard or something. Anyway, so that's Violife Epic Mature. I'm going to say, yes, that is a bit like cheese, but it does not deserve this Epic Mature cheddar flavour taste. Epic taste, Epic Mature. Sorry, don't agree. I think we'll get some proper cheddar and we'll have a look at what proper cheddar tastes and behaves like when it's cooked. So today I've got 3 other cheeses that I'm going to taste and reflect on the differences between this and the Violife Epic Mature. So I've got just a block of cheese I bought in Co-op. Somerset Vintage Cheddar, 12 months matured. So that's a supposedly intensely flavoured cheddar. I've got a chunk of Twanger, which is a Somerset cheddar. And I've got a chunk of Lyburn, which is not a cheddar, but it is another hard cheese from Glastonbury, I think, so again from Somerset. So we've got 3 Somerset cheeses here, and Somerset is kind of appropriate because Somerset is the location of the town of Cheddar. If you didn't know, cheddar cheese is named after the town of Cheddar where it was originally made. Anyway, let's open these up and see what they're like. So, Lyburn, which is like a... Well, I'm not going to try and compare this to any other cheese, but it is a pressed cheese and it's got a rind on it. So it's not a cheddar cheese though. So I think cheddar cheese is where they break up the curds. It's the cheddaring method. And then I've got this, which is Twanger, which is a Somerset cheddar. So, and let's just open this one, I suppose. So we'll just open this plastic wrapped supermarket cheese. And yeah, this one's suffered a little bit from being wrapped in plastic, so it's a little bit shiny and wet on the outside. But not to worry. Okay, tasting time, and I think we'll do Co-op Somerset cheddar first. Just cut off a piece there. So, immediately, the differences between this and the Violife Epic Mature. There's a slight translucency to it, and we're going to find it doesn't really bend at all. It just crumbles. Okay, tasting time. Well, actually, let's have a sniff. Actually, not that much aroma. Obviously, it does smell cheesy, but not a powerfully cheesy aroma. And that's one thing where this was different. So this has actually got quite a powerful nose on it, but more so, in fact, than a real version of cheddar. But I suppose that might be something to do with the flavourings that they've added. Tasting time. Yep, that's a nice cheese. Nice and strong, got a good kind of sharpness to it. Very different texture to the Violife product. I suppose we ought to... I really don't want to eat any more of this, but I'll cut a piece of this Violife Epic Mature for comparison. So this is the Violife Epic Mature product. You can see bendy, not bendy. Right, so that's the Co-op Irresistible 12-month matured Somerset Vintage Cheddar. This is Twanger, which is a very mature cheese. And so again, here we've got a kind of crumbed texture inside, a definite translucency to it. And yeah, this is not going to bend at all. Watch what happens if I try and bend this. It just breaks apart and crumbles. So the texture is very different. Again, the smell is cheesy, but not overpowering. Tasting time. Really nice and strong cheese. Tangy and complex and lots of depth. And also, it's got these little crumbly grains of, I think they're grains of whey or calcium or something in there. So it's got tiny little crunchy granules in there, which I really like in a mature cheese. Not everybody likes that, but I certainly do. And Liburn, and you can see this is a cheese with a natural rind. I don't think there's even wax. Oh, there is wax on it. There's clear wax on it, which will peel off. But the rind itself is quite edible. I will just get rid of the wax. So this is Liburn Gold. And again, just a different kind of translucency to it from the compared to the Epic Mature. And again, because it's a mature cheese, it breaks. A bit more bendy, I think, than a cheddar, but that's to do with the process. To smell, again cheesy, but not overpowering. This one's got a different kind of savouriness to it, so it's got slight bitter notes like you might find in Jarlsberg or Gouda. So a slight bitterness that you get from some of those cheeses, and more of a creaminess, I would say. Now, just to be as fair as I can, we'll have a bit of this. This is the Twanger. I'll have a piece of that on a cracker with some of my odds and ends pickle. So just so it's really a fair comparison to the taste tests we did for the Violife. It's very different. Because it's a product that's been aged and the flavour has come from the aging process, there's something about that depth of flavour that stands up to flavours like pickle much, much better. And so this isn't a case of the pickle masking the cheese, it's kind of enhancing the cheese, and the depth of flavour of that cheese kind of shines through anyway. And then let's try a bit of this Liburn. And the Co-op, I'll try the Co-op cheese as well on a cracker. Might just have this as is on a cracker. So in all of those cases, the pickle and the crackers work with the cheese rather than kind of against it. I've probably got a lot of bias here, so I should probably acknowledge that. I've grown up eating cheese all my life. My palate has become accustomed to eating cheese, but I think there's just, in terms of flavour and in terms of depth of flavour, these real cheeses are offering something that this Violife Epic Mature simply doesn't have. This is a cheese flavoured product. This is cheese. They are not the same thing. And sadly, I'm sorry once again, this does just fall very far short of what I would call Epic Mature. This is an Epic Mature cheese. This is an Epic Mature cheese. This is a mature cheese that's bordering on epic. This, I'm afraid to say, is a block of cheese flavoured custard that, whilst I appreciate what they're trying to do, fails in its mission to be a reasonable substitute for mature cheese. I think we'll go and do the cheese on toast test. I think we'll probably use Twanger for that. And we'll go and do the cheese on toast test. So that's coming up in a moment. Okay, so comparison cheese on toast. We're going to do the Twanger. I've got some bread here. So as before, I'm going to toast one side of this bread. Eva, quiet. Sorry, but you're making too much noise. Okay, so that's bread toasted on one side, and I'm going to put the cheese on the other side. Just how I like to make cheese on toast, because that gives this untoasted side a bit longer under the grill before it starts to burn at the edges, which means the cheese gets a bit more toasted. That's the theory. I am going to do the same kind of preparation that I did with the other product. So I'm going to grab one of my pickled walnuts. These are several years old now. The other half, we're going to dab on a little bit of Dynamite Marmite. So quite a bit of cheese on there, but about equivalent to what I used of the other block. Those are going to go under the grill, or broiler if you're American, for probably about 5 minutes until it crisps and browns up on top. Okay, and there it is. So, not the most crispy cheese on toast, but what's happened here is completely different. This hasn't just collapsed, it's melted as I would expect cheese to melt. Anyway, let's get this to the table and give it a taste. So the cheese has just behaved in a completely different way on top of here. It's melted into, well, you know what cheese does when it melts. Let's have a taste of that. Wow. So cooking this twanger cheddar really brings out the tanginess of it. And then with the pickled walnuts. Yeah, that's good. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. The fruitiness of those pickled walnuts together with the sharp tanginess of the cheese, that is just amazing. Okay, now the spicy Marmite. Also very good. But even just plain cheese on plain toast, that's really nice. That would be really nice alongside a bowl of soup or something. Okay, time for the Eva test of cheese on toast, and I know how this is going to play out because we've done this many times, haven't we, Eva? You got a little pour for me? Thank you. That good? You're not sad about that at all, are you? Yeah, she's looking back at the plate where there's more there. No, I'm afraid not. We can't give you too much, Poppet. Good girl, though. So in summary, real cheese. So this is Twanger versus Violife Epic Mature Cheddar Style Block. This just isn't a substitute, in my opinion. Now this is really interesting for me because with some of the meat substitutes I've tried, they've been kind of acceptable. They've been kind of okay, and although they weren't quite the same, I was probably more willing to forgive the differences because they were still edible. They still added some protein into the meal. They may have had a certain satisfying texture to them that made it possible to accept them as a substitute. This, I just can't do it. And the other thing, obviously, to acknowledge is that these substitutes, in this particular case, they're very often carbohydrate based rather than protein based. So as a substitute, if you keep on doing that, obviously you're going to end up eating insufficient protein. Maybe that's not what the intent of this product is, but I think that's something to be a little bit careful about with these manufactured substitute products. Is if you just did all of the swaps, you probably would end up eating not enough protein, and you might well end up with some sort of malnutrition. I think if I ever found myself in this situation where I couldn't, or definitely didn't want to eat real cheese anymore, I don't think I would accept this as a substitute. I think I'd rather go somewhere else for substitutes. I'd rather have a handful of nuts, maybe some Bombay mix, and some fermented pickle, something that isn't trying to be cheese. This, unfortunately, is trying to be cheese and falls short in a way that makes the difference really disappointing. Anyway, I hope that was interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.